audience, and I hope I can have you have some exciting information for you with respect to the marketplace. What I understand is that this the concept of the Change2Twin Marketplace has been introduced and mentioned earlier by Laura and also by others. And I would like to give you an introduction to what is our understanding the marketplace as a core element of the of Change2Twin is all about, and what is the vision for realizing that kind of concept. So I will start sharing my screen, and I hope that works out properly. Maybe some, yeah. Okay. This looks fine. Great. So today's presentation, or the introduction of the Change2Twin Marketplace, I'm not doing by myself alone. I'm here from PSNC, which is a company, a software company with expertise in modeling and models from Austria. But I'm joined here by David from Poznan and by Roman from the CloudBroker team. I think Roman has the camera on. Maybe you can wave so people can recognize you. Perfect. And Dawid, I think you are somewhere in the room here as well. It's a bit hard to identify who's around and who's still missing. Right, but just to give you some faces, you should see me on the screen as well. We're in lockdown in Vienna, so I changed the background a little bit so that you have a nice impression. Dawid, I mentioned already, and the Roman. We will give you an introduction also what happens behind the scenes, so not only the concept itself, but also to see what is going on with respect to development and how these results are realized. So Dawid from Poznan Supercomputing, Roman from CloudBroker. As you can see from the team that is presenting here, this is a technical team. So I apologize in advance in case we use technical terms. Please interrupt us in case you would like to understand something more in detail and how things are planned and structured. Right, what is the agenda for today? I have actually 4 main items I would like to introduce to you. Number 1 is I would like to introduce the concept of the marketplace, and I would like to use an analogy here so that we see why is there a need for another marketplace, in the sense that this is actually not a marketplace as you already know and are aware of. This is a challenge with respect to knowledge, so that we have to understand what is going on. And I think you heard a lot about assessment and understanding what the SME or the pilot partner wants to do. And this is something that we want to reflect also on marketplace level. I would like to give you a view on the current development status. The release of the first version is happening soon, so we will have the chance to browse and see what is going on the Change2Twin Marketplace within the next weeks, I hope, and then actually see the concept in operation as well. We then have a look behind the scenes, namely what are the technologies and interfaces, and how do we realize this kind of concept in a sustainable manner. The term sustainability is very important for me, so that this is not only a technical realization, that's it, but it's a concept that you can pick up upon and you can realize also by yourself as a dedicated space where you provide your offerings. And the last step is something that it relates then to the assessment again. So we have assessment that provides the requirements and the content and the domain knowledge, the marketplace supporting this retrieval process, but that we have also the need to experiment with technologies and see how these technologies work. And I would like to introduce to you a concept that's called OMILab. You will see that at the very end, that enables then laboratory-based experimentation with marketplace items, with extensions, within a physical space that is offered in a sense of a feasibility assessment and stuff. Good. I jump through the learning objectives. I think you have that available also on the community space. But what I would like to start off with is that what is a marketplace? And I want to start with a very let's say example from the physical world. I'm not sure if somebody around from Turkey, from Istanbul, it is called. Maybe not, but let's see. What we see here is an example of such a marketplace. So the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul in Turkey. And when you consider that one, what is the common thing, or what kind of observations can we make when we look at such a marketplace? Well, a marketplace enables the exchange of physical goods and services in that case. It's a physical marketplace. You go there, you buy your groceries, you have your shoes repaired, you have all the elements that you require in order to exchange goods and services. For a physical marketplace, this is location dependent. You need to be there, you need to go there and do that one. evolution time is something that is of interest. Well, the physical marketplace doesn't change every moment, every second, but it is somehow stable. What we can see here in the background is a map of the Grand Bazaar, so you can also recognize it by the colors, where specific areas are, where we find specific things, and this evolution is long-term. So it's not something that happens from one second to the other, which is a main distinction point when we consider digital marketplaces. What we require, though, is we require local knowledge. So when you go to Istanbul and you try to buy something, you need to know where to go and where to find things. And this is something that is actually a challenge when we look at the photograph down here. So you need to be an expert in a sense to browse through and find the appropriate things. The common characteristics are shared services and facilities. So this marketplace offers you that one in a sense. The marketplace operator offers you that one in the sense that you that this is an organized manner of interaction. For the bazaar, the organization is on a different governance level than potentially on a digital marketplace, but nevertheless, you share common interests, you share common services when you interact. Let's have a look on digital marketplaces. Is there any difference? Well, when we consider those parts, I have here 4 examples. The top left one is from the Cordis platform. I think you're all aware of that one. When you try to find something on Cordis, you have a bazaar-like experience, I would say. So you need to know where you look for things. You have to have the knowledge, the understanding of the domain of EU research in order to retrieve things. There's another example over here, the Gaia portal, again, providing interfaces and interaction with services, digital services that are there. On the bottom left, without any reasoning, I just picked up here IBM and Microsoft. Again, we have marketplaces for apps or for services or for technology. What we can see here is that we have common concepts like shared services and facilities. So these are organizations that are behind that one, that take care that this is moderated. There's some governance in there. We require domain knowledge in order to find things. So when you browse the Microsoft App Store and you try to find something that supports your digital twin initiatives, well, good luck. You can follow the categorization. You can use some full text search. But if in order to assess whether a specific item that you find in there is appropriate, this is a matter of knowing your way around and knowing the results that are presented. What we can recognize here is that it has a very quick iteration. If you look into the Microsoft App Store or the Apple App Store or whatever you take as an example, you will have new items appearing, old items disappearing without any further notice. So you have an iteration and updates that take place in a way that you need to follow up what is going on the marketplace in order to be up to date all the time. For location independence, you don't need to be present to do your exchange of virtual goods and services, as it is mentioned on top. I think that's a common characteristic of this. When we look at it from a concept point of view, this is nothing new. I think you have the marketplace enables the interaction between consumers and providers. The consumer who is looking for something has a need, the providers who provide them the fulfillment of that one, and on the meta level offer things on the marketplace operator who provides the whole thing as shared services, as a space where you can actually interact and perform this kind of exchange. Well, when we think about the Change2Twin Marketplace, then this is actually the concept from a conceptual point of view that is still valid. Nevertheless, we don't try to invent yet another marketplace. When you Google for marketplaces, you find hundreds of examples and cases and possibilities in there. And the Change2Twin Marketplace doesn't want to be yet another one. But what we would like to support with our marketplace from a conceptual point of view is that this local knowledge that I mentioned before, this knowledge about specific items is reflected in the marketplace so that you don't search, but that we can interact with the assessment methods and retrieve the appropriate items directly. Just to emphasize on this local knowledge part, I have here a quick example. Those people, I think Marcella and others are from Vienna, they know the pictures. This is actually where our office is, just right next to Karlsplatz, and this is called Naschmarkt, another marketplace, similar as a bazaar in the middle of town. And let's imagine we have Thor around, Thor from Norway. Maybe there's some mapping to somebody who's in the call as well. And let's assume I tell Thor, please, Thor, cook nice dinner during the evening. Well, and I send him to Naschmarkt. And then you see what is going on, because he needs to find his way through this food case. He needs to find the appropriate ingredients. He needs to know where to go and who to ask and what to interact with. This is a challenge. What I mean with understanding where things are, how things work, and what are the characteristics of things. And I believe this is one of the core elements that we need to cover. So we need local knowledge to run that one. The same applies, of course, for the digital world. Let's assume that's me, of course, over here, and I would like to run the great digital twin project and initiative in my organization. Well, I need to decide which items do I pick, which ones are appropriate, which are needed, which fulfill the domain requirements that I have. I can pick a few of those, can experiment around, can play around with those, but nevertheless, which one is the appropriate one? This is something tricky to answer and hard to come up with. Why? Because I need to understand the requirements first. I need to understand the domain. The assessment method helps me in that one. So I can find out what is the domain requirements that we have, what is the maturity level in my organization, how does it fit to specific items. I need to understand, is there one solution that fits to my complex issue? Can I just say, well, I get one app from Cordis and I'm done? Or do I need to consider integration? What is the appropriate technology that I want to run it upon? Do I need to think about technology even? Or is it everything is provided in the cloud and I don't need to care anymore? How business fit is the whole thing? Do I run into any risks if I run this project, in this initiative? Or do I need to consider any limitations that might occur? So there's quite a few questions that we need to answer when we perform this kind of search. And maybe you have experienced that when you look for a new piece of software, a new piece of hardware that you would like to use. And I just picked up on the presentations yesterday, the bicycle example. What I asked myself when I saw this presentation, which was great, but how do you identify which sensor is appropriate? What kind of knowledge do I need to have in order to be able to pick that one from a web store and buy it online? What do I need to know about the software that is required in order to run that one? And this is actually the knowledge issue that I would like to introduce, and that is a core element and conceptual element within the marketplace discussion. Mega trend, of course, about digital transformation is omnipresent. So this is something where we all work into. I think I don't need to explain that one. I put that here on the slides because I would like to create awareness here. What kind of digital transformation we actually do? Do we transform? And here's the example of Lego. I'm not sure if you know that one. If you have some time later on, I can highly recommend this 3-minute video. Why? Why is this Lego movie a disruptive approach? Well, the technology to construct Lego kits, I think everybody who has a kid at home knows what Lego is, but the technology to build these different Lego kits has been outsourced, has been open sourced in a way that a company called Warner Brothers was able to create a 3D movie, which is a big hit now in the all around the world. So what we can learn from that one is we take the technology, we apply it in a completely different manner, and we create a new business model that enables us to do this kind of things. Or do we do a digital optimization? This is something which is rather common. What does that mean? We look into a specific application case, a specific scenario, and we optimize the way how this business model is realized through new technologies, right? So to develop an app or to interact with something that is already existing, but I just changed the way how we can structure that. And here the example, again, you can look that up later on by yourself, is about the virtual roller coaster. So the business model is the same. It's about a roller coaster. You sit inside of one of these cars and you are like driven around a certain parkour. But at the end of the day, you pay to be part of that one. The digital optimization happened in this case that all of these people have such VR goggles on, and you have high performance computing in the back so that you are driving through a 3-dimensional space and you navigate and you have a different experience how things work. But what I would like you to keep in mind, and I think this is something that is motivating us, is that we need to be clear or distinguish upon this aspect also when we interact with the marketplace. Right. What are the challenges that we have observed when realizing the marketplace concept? One part is that we have a high fragmentation. So we have digital offerings all around. There's not only one place where you look for those, but you have different channels. You can contact the provider directly. You can go into specific app stores. You can call your agent, whatever it is. But you have different channels to interact, and the whole knowledge or the whole technology is fragmented in a specific space. we have to do some conceptual mapping. So we need to understand how does an outcome, how does that domain knowledge fit to the technology that we would like to use and to the digital offering that is available. So in a sense, we need to make sure that our requirements, we have assessed them, we know their maturity, we know everything. How do they fit to the results that we can offer on marketplace level? This is, of course, not only a one shot. So this conceptual mapping is not valid for forever, but we need to consider what happens if we change something in there. So if there's a new development, what happens if we change the requirements, if new restrictions, new potential legal restrictions that take place. So how do I adapt my offerings or my selection of offerings based on these requirements? Right. And we need to have the knowledge about building complex cases. What I have learned also during these last 2 days is that it's not an easy thing to realize something, because we need to have the knowledge how different pieces of digital offerings fit together in order to have a meaningful outcome that can be interpreted and that can be useful with respect to digital tools. Right, and here we get to the Change2Twin Marketplace and how this marketplace is positioned and what we would like to realize with that one. What we want to accomplish, and I call this one our vision, is that we have different perspectives. The three actors that we have seen on the initial slide on marketplaces, and how we would like to change these perspectives or update those directly. So one part is the consumer perspective. So how do I interact with the marketplace as a user? Let's say I put in here my candidates that I think are potential users of such potential instances of this consumer perspective. So Digital Innovation Hub, pilot cases directly. And we need to follow here something like a multi-channel approach that we get from an assessment to an experimentation and feasibility assessment to operation, evaluation, and then actually have the life cycle close again with assessing the evaluation input is input for another assessment round. So this is an iterative life cycle based logic that is. When we consider the operator, the one that is in the middle, that is providing things, I believe that it's not at the time anymore to invent a new marketplace, but to have a meta concept available, and I call this one the ecosystem of marketplaces. So what does that mean? That we can imagine that these marketplaces evolve according to the domain-specific requirements that we see. So, my assumption here is that as a digital innovation hub, you have domain knowledge, you have specific domain expertise in an industry domain or with respect to support services, and you would like to have a custom marketplace that aggregates everything that you would like to have in there in order to provide your pilots and your consumers or your users with an experience that is quick, easy, responsive, and allows you to customize projects accordingly. This means that we not only have one marketplace. There will be one, of course, maintained by the project consortium, but nevertheless, this is a call for action on your side as well, that at the end of the day, what we would like to see is that we have an ecosystem of different marketplaces that can support each other and integrate the items. And on the last point, the last viewpoint, we would like to enable a roadmap that supports that innovative results are transformed into exploitable elements and can be marketed accordingly. What does that mean? What we see that is in research programs, we have a lot of great results from research institutes, from universities, from companies, and how do they make the way to the market in a sense of usability, in a sense of applicability. And this is something where we would like to propose a roadmap that allows us to handle these kind of interactions. So that's another call for solution providers to follow this road and to be part of this ecosystem of marketplaces with their items and with their content. Right. How does that fit into the overall day? I took one screenshot here of Laura's slides, and I didn't ask her for that, but just to make sure how that fits together. I think you have heard about that. We have the compass tool, we have the readiness tool, and what we find out here is that we miss some parts, so we miss essentials that are required, and here the marketplace is contacted and the marketplace replies with appropriate items that are needed. So from a technology point of view, we assume that this compass tool, readiness tool, actually establishes the requirements in a format and in a way that it can be processed. So that this has to do with knowledge representation, one of my research backgrounds. so that we have this knowledge represented in a manner that we can easily connect it to the marketplace and have actually the retrieval mechanism in a supportive manner. That means you could walk your way through the tools, you press a button, and ideally, not yet ready, of course, but ideally, at the end of the day, you get a proposal, a recommendation, what would be appropriate candidates from a marketplace of your choice that are meaningful. Right. Let's have a look into that viewpoint from a consumer perspective. We have different interaction approaches that I would like to showcase to you. Step number one, which is the standard way of doing things, it's search and browse, right? So this is what we're used to when we go to the web shop. We search for items, we browse for items, we select them, and we make sure that this is appropriately defined so that we can immediately have it ready and get it running. This is one part, this get it running, that we want to emphasize also with respect to the marketplace technology, that we connect actually two operations in the sense that the infrastructure and the service provisioning is something that is transparent for the user. We click a button and we have the infrastructure ready for operation. But from an interaction point of view, we call this one search and browse, meaning full text search, browsing through text, browsing through categories, and find the items in case they are available. A more advanced interaction would be the assess and discover approach. What does that mean? What I mentioned before, the consulting tools, and I assume there will not be only one or two, but there will be many of those depending on the domain expertise and the digital innovation hubs that are available. I think Dawid did a theory in the beginning, and we have a lot of these tools available. And the interesting part would be to connect these one to the interfaces of the marketplace in order to retrieve. What do we do here? Discover means here we do some reasoning based on ontological representation, technological detail, but just for your information, we do some logical reasoning in order to identify items that fit to the needs that we accommodate. Right. The other interaction approach, evaluate the feasibility. This is something that I would like to emphasize upon. If we have a digital innovation environment, and I will show that to you in a video at the very end of the presentation, we can run actual experiments with the items that we retrieve from the marketplace. So that means I need a laboratory setting because I cannot know in advance whether things work or not. What we can demonstrate at the end is the working solution, but in order to get there, I need to iteratively get close to this to these results. And I believe this learning from a laboratory is also valuable input for you as a digital innovation hub to convince or to showcase best practices, how that works. Well, and here's the open part. Of course, that can be extended, how we interact with that. So just to summarize how we would position this one, we have, now your face, this is in the way, I move you up here. We develop actually technology that enable this one. Everything is model-based. This is what I would like to emphasize here. This is actually our expertise. So we have a conceptual model, a conceptual representation, which is machine processable, that allows us to control how the related technology operates. The model influences the front ends. This is another component, so the visualization component, the interaction component. It impacts the configuration of the marketplace middleware in the sense that the middleware picks up requests by the user and performs then the necessary operation and deploys things then in the marketplace infrastructure, which is a high-performance computing center in Boston, so that things actually run and are ready for you to be provided. This enables us with these the interaction paths that I mentioned before: search and browse, assess and discover, run and use. So we have the capabilities by the technology to enable these, let's say, predefined interaction paths. Nevertheless, what we see on top is how do we instantiate things. And what I mentioned in the beginning is what I would see as a very impactful outcome is that we have not only one Change2Twin marketplace, but that we have different subsets, let's say, of this marketplace or extended marketplaces for specific digital innovation hubs. Why is that important? Because I believe that the knowledge and expertise that the digital innovation hubs bring into the project needs to be reflected and cannot fit into a common space where everybody is represented. This would result in a situation where we don't find anything anymore, we cannot properly browse things. But to have specialized a specialized network of marketplaces that are connected, that relate to each other. That means in case of an update, they are populating itself and the ecosystem is up and running accordingly. Right, consumers then interact, of course, and this is another aspect when we have individual parts that we can also enable individual consulting methods as a instantiation of the interaction path that we see at the bottom. From a provider perspective, this is something that we have evaluated in the past 5 to 10 years about how do we move from innovation to exploitation. And I think this is something that is an important aspect, considering the loads of results with respect to development digital offerings that are currently available on the European research landscape. And what we have applied also in the past project, but what we are doing here in Change2Twin as well, is that we continuously monitor for new innovation items. Again, also a call for you, if you know an item or an offering that you would like to be included, please get in touch with us. And this actually walks the way through the different phases of this roadmap in order to position it then as a product or as a service on the marketplace that can be realized and can be exposed to the ecosystem of these nodes that we saw before. What kind of offerings do we consider? We have at this stage, at this current discussion point, we think about, again on the side, sorry. We consider four main types of offerings, where we have the basic parts here in the beginning. So for us, a service, and I use now a German term, can be also be called Dienstleistung, so something that a user is offering to, the user is receiving by personal interaction, through consultation, through information exchange, and this is also considered an offering that you can receive via the marketplace. So it's not only digital offerings in the sense of software and hardware, but it's also knowledge that is offered here. For the software application part, we consider here two different types of offerings that we would like to provide and support. One part is that it is a software as a service offering. That means the software is offered via the marketplace. It's deployed instantaneously, so it's moved on to the infrastructure. We follow here industry standards like Docker or Kubernetes, so that this is actually exposed accordingly. And this is one part for SaaS offering, or we have bundle offerings where we put pieces in a pre-configured manner together. The third element could be tenant-based approaches. You have a running piece of software and you get access to that one. The last item relates to digital infrastructure offerings, where it's about hardware. So an offering could also be that I need an RFID sensor for this and that. I need a bicycle sensor for another purpose. And the concept is that we describe these offerings using a model-based approach. The model-based approach has been evaluated in here. The main purpose of this one is that through modeling, we can externalize the knowledge that is behind such an innovation item. And here you see the, let's say, the evaluation that took place in the past, applied on European Union projects. And the challenges that we have identified here is that how do we model those? So how do we describe an innovation item? How do we describe an exploitation item? How do we model the combination, so the integration of digital offerings as a hybrid combination of things? What knowledge do we require in order to run the processes of the marketplace, so the update process, the retrieval process, the interaction paths? What means do we need to extract that knowledge? So from a human-based approach, that somebody has an expertise and provides this content, to retrieval mechanisms which are more technical, so that we can also crawl existing marketplaces, create this meta concept in our space and provide it back. And I think one critical thing, and that's a long discussion that we already had in our working session, is that what kind of governance rules do we want in order to have high quality on the marketplace? I think this is something that is tricky. It ranges from a highly controlled environment where you need to pass certain quality gates to a bazaar-like offering where you just offer whatever you have, independent of the quality that is. But I think from a digital innovation hub's perspective, some control is essential, but not in the sense that we limit ourselves, but that we allow also novelty and innovation into this space. Right. From an interaction point of view, I would like to give you a quick view how the current result looks like, and that will be provided and made available to you then afterwards as soon as the release is ready via the Change2Twin website. So the concept here is that we have on the landing page, this is our front page, this is our interaction space, the search and browse, and the assess and discover logic. So the landing page takes the following representation, very trivial. So we have a listing of elements. You see that over here. So there's an example that comes from our end, knowledge-based process simulation, a possibility to simulate processes of production processes, for example, and do some foresight. A semantic questionnaire, whatever it is. We have collected here at this stage, I think 40-something items which are exposed. Those things are categorized in a sense of tagging and filtering, so we can find our way. And of course, there's the standard stuff that we can also do full text search. The interesting part is not how that looks like and how it feels. The interesting part is that these items are described by the model and actually influence the whole system that is provided. What you recognize already here is, and I will show that to you later, is we have a purchase button. So that means the model not only describes the content, but it also describes the payment methods, the business model, the deployment model, so in order to make this system operational. Right, this is just to show how filtering works. I think it's interesting, but when we open such an item, the model contains in the first step information on the description of this one. So I can learn about this, digital offering with images, with videos, with everything. But what I can do as well is I can click here the purchase button, and what happens then, and I show you not the registration and payment process, in the background, the deployment process is immediately started. So here we talk to Roman's middleware, CloudBroker's middleware. They pick up the request by the user, by the client, instantiate things, and operates then this digital offering item. It's of course only true for software offerings. So if it's a knowledge service, like a consulting service, the process looks different. The process is performed in the way that it's not a deployment, but it's an interaction that is triggered in the sense of a negotiation between the provider and the consumer. Deployment has started, the purchase is confirmed, and after a few moments, I have then the item ready and I can immediately start to work on top of that one. I don't need to worry about infrastructure. I don't need to worry about software, services, licenses, hardware, whatever. This is all handled in a transparent manner through the CloudBroker middleware and then the infrastructure level that is available. The same logic applies when we want to interact with the system, not from a browse and search perspective, but if I want to connect here with an assessment method. And here's an example how this alignment mechanism could work. What we see over here is that we try to describe the pilot cases that are returned. We have a method that we have built in the past years that is called Scene to Model. It's built upon SAP Scenes technology, and it is a mechanism for design thinking and storyboarding. And what you see here is you have, right, you see up here, if it would be physically together, I could show that to you directly, but we built actually a storyline using paper figures. We transform those paper figures into a conceptual representation, so a model-based representation. It's iconic. On the other hand, we collect the solution space. So we collect all the digital innovation items as they are available in different marketplaces, and we describe them using another model. And as soon as you have conceptual models on the same format, we can actually run some combination and comparison with these. It's not a one-to-one matching, but what is the objective here is that we express knowledge that is exposed here in the form of a storyboard, in the form of a categorization, and we have down here the capabilities, on the other side the requirements, and here we perform then some smart alignment. Smart alignment could mean an expert from a digital innovation hub looks at the pictures up here, knows what is down there, and performs this alignment, let's say, manually through human interpretation. But we can also try to translate this human expertise into artificial intelligence so that we perform this mapping and propose things similar as a recommend. I believe that there's still the need for human interpretation, so the artificial intelligence acts here as a support mechanism, and I can show you how that looks like. There's ontologies that describe the requirements and also the capabilities. These things are matched, and through semantic inference, I can actually get recommendations what I could use for a specific purpose. Right, if in case you're interested in this technology, the model-based technology, everything is open and open source. So you can go to the website that is provided down here. It's realized on our meta modeling platform called AdoXX. You can download things, play around. It's prototypes, of course, prototypes that showcase this concept of model-based design, model-based marketplace models that are marketplaces that enable then interaction through this conceptual view on the requirements and on the capabilities. Right, let's look behind the scenes now. I think it's time to also see what happens behind the scenes with respect to technology. I've shown you the model. The model is our core element. And the model actually translates then things into the landing pages, the front pages, the middleware, and the infrastructure. And what I would like to, actually on this picture, to give you a high-level architecture, a little bit technology. I think that's not too bad if we talk about digitalization and we look into the components and software artifacts. But what is the concept is that we have the marketplace model. I introduced that already, and I will go a little bit further into detail here. And the infrastructure, middleware, and landing page are actually influenced by this model. That means the model takes here the representation of a configuration item. It configures the different artifacts according to the model-based representation. On top, we see that we interact with that one, and I have done a big box here, and that's called assessment methods, and that's open. So we have learned about assessment methods today, assessment tools today. They can be used decoupled, of course, but also in the future in an integrated manner. If you want to contribute a solution item, an innovation item, this goes into the model, it's captured in there, and then actually translated into this technical architecture. What is going on? Right, the model itself, I've mentioned that before, our conceptual model is on one hand represented in such an online Excel sheet where we have derived the conceptual views from, and we use that also as an interaction level, since this is easier to handle than any kind of modeling tool. But we have also translated these two parts and the labels that are specified by Laura into a conceptual model that is provided as a modeling tool. And the modeling tool takes the different flavors. These are the items and the concept, the meta model that we have thought about, what I have introduced before, but now from a technical perspective. And we also consider then deployment facets, descriptive facets, license payment facets in order to configure or to describe things in a model-based approach. On the other hand, we have the user who interacts with these items and to learn actually from usage and from the domain requirements that are related to a specific user. The tool looks like that. It's a graphical modeling tool with all the features that a conceptual modeling tool has. So it's not a graphical view, it's not a VCO, but it has model value functionality. And this model value functionality is related to queries, to assessment, interaction, to semantic inference, transformation, generation, etc. Again, this is freely available and you can take it directly. On the landing page, the landing pages that I showed you on screens before are generated directly from this model. I will just skip the animation, but to give you an idea how that works, we have the conceptual model that I introduced you before. We transform that one, that's a model-based transformation, into an open standard representation. We use Markdown as the syntax here. Markdown is the same language that Wikipedia uses to describe their pages. This is generated, but can also be written manually. The other facets that I mentioned before with respect to payment and deployment are trigger an update on the middleware, so they are pushed to the middleware. And at the end of the day, we generate them through a continuous integration and deployment cycle these marketplace landing pages. Whereas the visualization, the look and feel, it's separated. So that this theming concept, that means in case you would like to run your own Change2Twin Marketplace, this can have a custom look and feel and interaction logic. The important thing is everything we cover in the model can also be represented here on the other side. So this is actually when it gets to the deployment on top of the infrastructure and providing the results back to the user. A little bit of source code, how does it look like? So this is the generation logic. and that provides then actually these kind of micro front ends that provide the interaction capabilities that I have introduced before. I will stop here now with the landing pages, and I will hand over to Roman to give you a quick look on the middleware. Roman, the first yours.
Thank you, Wilfrid.
So do you hear me?
Yeah.
I just interrupt you to get the two questions in the chat before the Roman's presentation.
Let me open that. I'll read it for me. Just a second.
Great.
Where do we have it here? What is the perspective of such a marketplace with respect to time down the road? Prerequisites or standards for plug and play between dozens of different applications and for enterprise. Correct. Mrs. Willman, I agree, this is a challenge, and this is what I meant before. It's an integration challenge, and this is, or not an integration, combination challenge of innovation items. And I think this has a domain-specific relevance, and this is something that we need to reflect upon, and I think this is something we need to learn also from the experience with the pilot cases. You can also ask or talk to me directly in case that didn't answer your question. I will go to the next one, Daniel Reichler. When will the marketplace be available? I'm citing that the market is currently under development, will be made available here by the end of 2020. Well, the deliverable is due end of January, and we are currently in the process of deployment. So that will be very soon. The infrastructure is almost ready, and then it's just a matter of minutes to upload things into the new infrastructure. Wilman, are you using semantic web, RDF ontologies for your models? If yes, which database systems are you using? Right. This is a very interesting question. This is exactly what is my research interest. For us, the model representation is done through meta models. So our models are defined or have a structure that is provided through meta modeling, and they have a direct mapping to the semantic web standards, RDF, OWL, whatever you like. The database that we use is a relational database with a very smart interpretation core that allows us to perform this meta model instantiation. So I can put that into the chat maybe. We have the meta modeling platform. This is own developed, about 25 years of experience in that one. And we realize then modeling tools based on this meta modeling platform. So the database level is actually transparent. We have something that is called core, and we actually program against this core in a following meta modeling concept.
And which database are you using then?
In order to store for persistence,
yes.
Anything that is relational, whatever you like.
Okay, so you're mapping it to a relational database.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good. Roman, sorry. There was question. I didn't recognize the question.
Thank you, Wilfrid.
Roman, the floor is yours. I press the buttons when you say next, okay?
Yeah, sure. So let's get started. This is Roman from the CloudBroker team. Today, I'd like to share with you a brief behind-the-scenes explanation of the middleware developed by our team and integrated with the BUC landing page. So here you can see initial design. Middleware component is responsible for execution of such processes as authorization authentication, shopping actions, and software deployment within the Change2Twin solution. Most of these functionalities are going to utilize the existing features of the CloudBroker platform. The platform itself is a web-based application for the deployment and execution of compute-intensive scientific and technical software in the cloud. So the middleware component is exactly a middleman that helps the marketplace to communicate with the CloudBroker platform and execute respective functions. Could you turn the next slide, please? So this slide shows the current implementation of the Change2Twin middleware. It somehow differs from the initial design, but it's not the final implementation yet. As you can see, there are three modules. The first one is identity and access management, module that allows users to log into the marketplace and work with all respective account management features. Then we have the middleware module. Currently, its main responsibility is the deployment. To make the platform know what to run, user provides all the necessary information, whether it is a Docker type item and should be launched respectively, or what are the firewall rules to apply to the virtual machine, and so on. Middleware module also contains deployments history and sends it to the marketplace, where you may see the current status of virtual machines and their execution respectively. Finally, it's user notification system. It's responsible for account validation, sending notification about organization's balance, user status, execution errors, and so on via email. At last, the third module is represented by CloudBroker platform, and it's responsible for starting virtual machines, deploying software and solutions on them, monitoring and reporting overall status to higher levels. To sum up, let me in short describe the current middleware workflow. After clicking on Purchase button, the landing page sends a request to the middleware that starts the deployment process and launches a respective virtual machine for it. The middleware also receives the deployment status, so the user can see if the deployment is starting, running, or stopped. Eventually, the user receives the link on his email. After going to a page with it, the user can see the software in the new tab. In the future, with our colleagues from BOC at PSNC, we're going to introduce such features as payment or billing system, recommendation list, and so on. Firstly, on a very basic level, but we'll keep improving them once the project becomes more and more mature. That's all for now from my side. Now I'm turning the floor over to our colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman. Perfect. We look on the last layer of interaction. David, perfect. I see your screen. Hi.
Hi.
I'm again your finger. Okay, you tell me when I press next. David, thank you. The floor is yours.
Sure. Can you hear me well? Yes. Wilfrid, can you confirm? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. My name is Dawid Szejnfeld. I'm from PSNC, Poznań and Supercomputing Networking Center from Poland. We are located in the city of Poznań. I will tell you a few words about our infrastructure. So this is the place where these virtual machines mentioned by Roman are created. So next slide, please. If you can. Yes. So in general, our infrastructure, which is used by this project, Change2Twin, is based on well-known system OpenStack. Yes, this system allows you to run virtual machines with Linux systems or Windows. It depends on you. The cloud system connects computing and application servers with data storage solutions and the network infrastructure. Services and applications running on virtual machines become more resistant to hardware failures. So in case of any problems, the machines can be migrated to some redundant servers. And this way, your system can be more resilient. It is possible also to adjust the amount of viable resources to the changing needs of users' applications and services at any time. So we can add more CPU, memory, storage, and by this, your application or service can handle more traffic, for example. OpenStack provides a set of infrastructure management services which are accessible over REST API, which help creating advanced and secure network and server topologies. So all of this is used by Roman middleware, and they are able to create any kind of infrastructure, virtual infrastructure, which can be later used by the applications and services which are provided to end users. Next slide, please. Yes, this is only a very, very high level picture of this infrastructure where you can see different components of it. There is also a web-based access infrastructure with REST API. There is some very core main components like compute, which is responsible for virtual machines, black storage responsible for volumes, networking for general virtual networking facilities, image service which holds all the images used for creating virtual machines, object storage to store your data as objects which can be easily retrieved later for any purpose. If we can show a next slide here, and where you can see that these kind of components, there are much more such kind of components which let you also configure security related things like firewalls, like any other storage related objects like shared volumes based on NFS, for example. You have also some helper services for password or encryption keys, certificates. You can define some workflows which can help you automate some things and so on. So this is very useful set of services which is very dynamic and flexible, and thus end user or middleware can create different kind of virtual infrastructures which we need. So the next slide, if we can, this shows here you can show the storage subsystem which we are using. It is based on Ceph. This is quite fast and secure storage service which with data replication, so it is quite hard to lose data there. It is failure resistant. There's many redundancy and replication. It gives you also S3 API, so you can use it similarly like the Amazon storage service, for example. You can do easily volume snapshots and restore them later. It is very flexible regarding utilization of storage space and ease of scalability. And the final slide, if I ask, yes. So a little bit about the hardware which is available there. So PSNC offers computing power, network, and storage for any application use cases. Actually, we are offering also individual consultancy, how to use HPC and cloud for given use case, and we can help also to implement defined scenarios. The top 500 list includes our new PSNC supercomputer system, Eagle 2, where its position is 85. It is the successor of the previous one, Eagle 1 system. It serves both HPC applications and cloud services, so the resources are moved dynamically around to tailor current needs. The supercomputer has power of almost 6 petaflops, and it is equipped with 63,000 CPUs cooled directly with liquid. As intended, it will be used by our users in Poland and in the whole Europe for engineering simulations, for example, big data calculations, some artificial intelligence or machine learning technologies, and so on. And also, of course, Change2Twin will use it. PSNC has also increased its resources with GPU cluster. So using accelerators with peak power of 0.6 petaflops. At present, our system is the fastest supercomputer in Poland. Additionally, our system was ranked number 61 on the Green 500 list of the most energy efficient computing systems. So I think this provides a very powerful resources which can be used by the services provided in the marketplace of Change2Twin. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I will pick up from here, and just to revert what we have just seen. We have seen the different layers and stack of the marketplace technology that we propose. Maybe something interesting is that this is not a vendor lock in a sense that you can only do things with CloudBroker, you can only do things with Postman, you can only do things with POC. No, but this is an exchangeable platform. So in case you would like to run things again, from a different landing page point of view, no problem. We provide the technology and you can realize that one by yourself. As a final step, I would like to provide you with a last viewpoint on interaction. So what does that mean? When you have marketplace items, you have retrieve those that are of interest. What is an important aspect from my point of view is that we have a possibility to refine and to evaluate how these items are used within such a pilot case. And I would like to introduce to you a concept of digital innovation environments. This is something that we have here at POC in our research part of the company. We have an innovation lab where we can actually try out physically what specific characteristics of a case mean, of a digital twin mean in a laboratory setting. And what is that all about? The whole idea is that we have a lab. We see here the pictures, and I will also show you then the video afterwards, that actually considers that the full journey from a business layer, so to understand what is the actual need, what is the requirement, to a formalization, what we call conceptual modeling layer, and down there to a proof of concept part, where we assess the feasibility and whether things work. Of course, the proof of concept is not a production-ready environment, but it is something to evaluate whether concepts that you have in mind with respect to digital twin can actually run, and that this environment is suitable for the specific need. So what we do here is we assume that we can use domain-specific conceptual modeling languages to formally describe the interactions, the logic in there. We can provide functionality there from the application domain that allows us to assess specific elements and then actually run the proof of concept as a result from the modeling exercise that we did before. Such a lab consists of various layers, and it is physical. So I invite you, as soon as we are allowed, to come again to our lab and we can see that together. The lab is established by an organization called OmiLab, which is a non-profit organization, and that distributes this kind of lab infrastructure and also expertise on how to use it to various institutions. Currently, 13 of those OmiLabs are available worldwide. And I would like you to finish the presentation by showing you a video. And now we hope it works. It just should give you an idea how the lab looks like. It's actually in our building. Just to give you an impression, the lab itself consists of 3 areas. The first area that we see here now is the design thinking space. So in here we have technology. So we use SAP scenes as a system, as a method, and we have technology that allow us to transform those haptic elements, these paper figures, in order to define how specific business models should look like, into a first draft of conceptual models. So there's about 400 of these items. We can retrieve those, and we can then move that one to our modeling and feasibility proof of concept part in there. Down there you see we have different robotic elements, cyber-physical interactions there. So an arm, a car, a drone, whatever. But the interesting point is that these elements are not industry proof, of course, but they show that the concept, the knowledge concept that we have in mind, and that's what you see here now, defined as models, can actually run, so that we can model something. You see it here. We have different modeling languages, standards, non-standards, domain-specific, etc. And these are directly connected to the cyber-physical system at the bottom. Different types of models, different representations. And the last space is something that we call engineering space here. The whole putting the pieces together takes place. So construction of cyber-physical systems, software development, etc. Again, for an experimentation purpose. And I believe this could be a valuable input also for this assessment part. We learn something, but we also reflect and we refine whether things are operational and can be used. Okay. So that's it. We were perfectly in time. Thank you, Roman. Thank you, David, for your contribution. 60 minutes later, we are through. Florence, I hand back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wilfrid.